Most people choose tenderness, but what about flavour? Depending on what you're after, there's a cut that meets your needs. Hi, Sam Burke, resident chef for Aussie Beef. Today we're going to talk about all different cuts for you to use and have success with Australian beef at home. Em and I are going to give you some tips and tricks. Now, Em, you love to go away with your friends on weekends. Aussie beef's on the barbecue all around the table. What's your go-to steak when you're with the girls?
Well, Dad, usually we try and look for something that's affordable, easy to cook and tastes good. So that's why we usually go for the rump steak.
Excellent choice, Sam. The beautiful thing about the rump, it's so versatile and you can use it across many different meal occasions. Today we're going to look at flavour-packed cuts, tender cuts and the good old crowd pleasers. Flavour-packed cuts. These are the steaks you choose when flavour matters most. So Emily, what I really like about these cuts is that they're packed full of flavour. They present well, they take on marinades, and they really give that beefy note and go with so many different meal occasions. The rump cap sits on top of the rump. Fantastic barbecue steak. And then we've got the flank. Now what I like about the flank, it's one of those cuts where you cook it hot, you rest it with minimal time, and then you cut it across the grain. You've got big grains going down here, and that keeps the beef tender. Fantastic, versatile steak. What makes these steaks flavourful is where they're located. They've got more bloodstream going into those cuts, you know, giving it that beautiful beefy flavour.
Dad, what do you mean by flavour?
Well, flavour's everything, Emily. When it comes to beef, that's the advantage we've got over other proteins. You get a nice crust on it, and then you don't need to add too much to it because the flavour's already packed in the cut.
Describe the eating experience for me.
Well, this one here is fantastic, right? You really render that fat down and it just accentuates the flavour of the beef with the rump cap. With the flank, it's got a real beefy flavour. I'd suggest to only cook to medium rare because if you go well done, it becomes very tough. Tender cuts. This is a real melt in your mouth experience.
Dad, why is it tender?
So these bad boys sit on the top of the cow, right? So they don't do a lot of moving around. The Scotch fillet comes straight after the chuck. It's a beautiful cut that sits right there on the saddle of the animal. Then the sirloin comes after it, and then underneath the sirloin is the tenderloin. So these little cuts mosey around on the top of the cattle. They don't do a lot of muscular work, if you like. Therefore, once processed, they're the most tender on the grill.
So what dishes do these cuts work well with?
With these bad boys, it's all about the steak. You don't want to slice them up. You want to serve them whole, and then we complement those steaks with those classic steakhouse sides. So it's about making sure that we really get the steak right, we rest it well, and then that's the showpiece. And then apart from the showpiece, then you've got those wonderful sides, whether it be your roast potatoes, whether it be your creamed spinach, whether, you know, all those classic steakhouse sides. The steak is the hero, and these are the hero steaks, these tender cuts. Crowd pleaser cuts, Sam. If you're cooking for everyone, this is the best bet. It's the best of both options we've got here, Emily.
Well, what are these options, Dad?
Well, for the T-bone, if you like, or the bistecca, or the porterhouse, you've got the beautiful attributes of two premium steaks. You've got your tenderloin, which sits here, and then you've got your sirloin that sits on this side with a big bone down the middle. Ironically, that's exactly the same steak, but that's the sirloin steak by itself, boneless. For this one, I'd serve as a centerpiece steak between 3 or 4 people with all your wonderful sides. For this steak here, that's an individual portion.
What do you mean by tender?
Once again, Emily, these steaks, they sit at the top of the cattle. There's not a lot of locomotive actioning happening here. They sit at the top happily all day long on the cow. So when we process those animals, these cuts are wonderful and tender. They're those iconic barbecue steaks that are loved by Australians.
Dad, what dishes do these cuts work well with?
Well, Emily, once again, the steak is the hero here. We cook it well, we rest it, and we serve it with our wonderful sides. The beautiful thing about Aussie beef is that you don't have to do a lot to it. So for example, the T-bone here, I'd probably do that with a nice Italian salad, some crusty bread, some roast potatoes, and maybe some tomatoes with burrata, like that bistecca style. And if the sirloin here, just your everyday side salad, you know, is a fantastic midweek option for a summer barbecue.
Wow, Dad, these really do look amazing. I can't wait to eat them. Can you tell us about how you cook them?
Yeah, so we've got the big perilla, the family iron bark perilla, iron fire perilla, and what we've done is we've got it nice and high with the iron bark underneath it. Big high heat, about 600 degrees Celsius. And what we did is we lowered the wheel and then we got the grill nice and hot. We let the meat come to room temperature. And then I put some avocado oil on, which has got a high flash point, and then straight on the grill. And then for these ones here, we started off with the bistecca, because that's a big 1 kilo cut. And then we followed with the flank. And then after that, we put on the smaller cuts, you know, so they could all come off harmoniously together. So which one do you want to try?
Out of the tender ones, I'd really like to try this one here.
Yeah, so that's the Scotch fillet. That's my favourite, Em, and it's got a beautiful rib cap on. So what I'll do here, really cut across those grains all the way down. There we go. You tell me what you think of that one, straight off the bat.
Yum, that is really tender.
So we've let it rest and we've got that nice medium rare consistency there. Then we go into the flavour cuts over here, Em, and we've got the flank and the rump cap. You want to try a bit of this flank?
Yes, of course.
So we're just going to cut that across the grain. But if you look at that, it's just beautifully cooked. And then what I'm going to do is cut it and tell me what you think of that one. It's got more of a beefy flavour. It's definitely more beefy than that one,
yeah,
right?
You can tell.
And then we got the picanha steak from the rump cap. You were telling me that this was your favourite when you went with your friends because it's versatile, it's easy to sauce, and it just eats well. Same thing, there, look at that, edge to edge, medium rare, right? And you'll get a lot more beefier taste. Just try that one there. Tell me what you think of that. All day, every day, that flank for me is a chef's special cut. It's just different, right? And it eats well. And then, you know, the crowd pleasers, right? Like I said before, the iconic barbecue steak, the sirloin which sits alongside the tenderloin on the T-bone. So these are a tender cut, like your everyday crowd pleaser. So that one is probably not as tender as the next one because that comes after the Scotch fillet on the carcass, right?
We'll have
and
to
then I want you to try this one here, which is essentially what you tried at the start, the tenderloin, which was the eye fillet steak. And that's a lot tender.
Yum, yeah.
So you see when you're cooking it, this has got a little bit more forgiveness, this side, the tenderloin side, than the sirloin side.
Right.
So Emily, you've tried all the steaks. Hopefully we've given you some tips and tricks to elevate your steak game. Which one of these is your favourite?
My favourite was the flank, definitely. The flavour in it was just incredible.
Well, that's really good to hear because it's actually the cheapest out of all the steaks. It just goes to show how versatile the product is. Whether you get your prime, elegant, tender restaurant steaks, right through to the crowd pleasers, to the everyday heroes, right, that you've tried, which is the flavour-packed steaks.
So, Dad, which one do you want to try?
Nothing beats a juicy rump, packed full of flavour. May I?
Of course, let's go.
Melts in your mouth. It's got it all.